This particular experience I'm going to relate to as I was a little kid. This is one of the first ones that I can recall being in first grade. And this is probably characteristic of what I've had to deal with my entire life in dealing with my hand. As you've seen in the other videos that have been done about people misunderstanding what my hand is actually my hand is a birth characteristic as opposed to being this voluntary gesture. This is not me. Anyway, this was really a difficult time in my life because this particular teacher that I had in the first grade was really kind of on me about my hand and not knowing really what was going on at the time, but looking back at what the teacher did to me while I was in first grade, it was kind of upsetting to me. It's kind of awkward as a kid, and kind of upsetting. But anyway, the story I'm going to relate here had to do with actually the first day that I can recall going into school and learning how to write and read and write the ABCs. And this particular day, as we've all been through this when we've gone to school, is when they passed out a manila piece of paper with the blue lines on it and handed out what I refer to as a carpenter's pencil to do the ABCs. I was kind of really up for this because I'd already been practicing at home how to write my ABCs. And when they passed out the paperwork and all, I was going to town with doing my lettering. And I would just grab the pencil like this. Now, just as a little kid, 5 years old, having little smaller hands back then as a little kid, I couldn't hold the pencil the way the teacher instructed us to hold the pencil. She wanted us to hold the pencil with 3 fingers and writing our ABCs. It's kind of like holding up a chopstick for how I deal with a chopstick. Now, when I was starting to write, I wanted to write with my right hand, but I couldn't hold the pencil the way that the teacher instructed us to hold the pencil. And I could only hold it with 2 fingers, and the pencil I had to actually wrap my hand around the pencil in order to do my lettering. And I recall it very specifically, very clearly in my mind, when I was involved in doing my lettering, the teacher came over to me, and if you look on the website, you can see a picture of my first grade class, but that teacher came over to me and told me that I had to learn how to write with my left hand. And then she said something else, which I'll get to in just a minute. So she made me learn how to write with my left hand. I happened to live about 2 blocks away from school, growing up from this particular school I was going to school, this particular class that I was going to school at. And I would go home for lunch every day. My mother made lunch every day. So I would walk home a block or 2 home from the school. And this particular day when my mother was making me some soup and a sandwich, she was making conversation with me. She said, well, how are you doing in school today? Not just making conversation. And I said, as a little kid, I said, I was really doing pretty good in school until the teacher made me start all over again. And my mother said, what do you mean made you start all over again? I said, look, we're doing ABCs, and she wants us to hold this pencil like this. I wanted to write with my right hand. I couldn't hold in my right hand. And the teacher actually came over to me and told me, this is a quote, this is exactly what happened. I remember like this happened yesterday. The teacher said to me that I had to learn how to write with my left hand because my right hand was no good. That's exactly what she told me. And I actually saw my mother in front of me starting to turn into the Hulk. I actually saw clothes starting to tear. And it kind of scared me, it kind of surprised me as a little kid. And I said, well, that's okay, Ma. When the teacher's looking, I write with my left hand. And when she's not looking, I write with my right hand. I learned how to become ambidextrous just because of that learning experience. Now, if you look at my picture on the website, the picture of this class, you'll see it looks like it's got a crease down the middle. That crease is actually not a crease. My folks actually paid for this photography, these class photos to be done, and I was so distressed at having to have been in that class with that teacher on me for that entire year that I actually tore the picture in half. And my mother taped it back together again. And if you notice me in the picture, I'm in the upper row, like the 3rd student left to right in the upper row. My hands are in my pocket. I actually, because of being in that class, I learned I was just, as a kid, I just kept my hands in my pocket because I didn't know how to deal with it, and I just didn't want to deal with it. That's my first grade experience.